Tonight, Constantine ends up on Earth 2, and even he thinks it's getting a little bit too much focus nowadays. Green Lantern Corps takes a human lantern and makes him any color besides green. How original. And Klarion is still a book. I'll admit, I was kind of hoping that one was a fever dream. All that and more tonight on the Not-So-New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 167 of the Not-So-New 52. I am your host, and every once in a while on this show, I will put things off a bit too late. I will say, oh, I'm recording this the night before, and it's like midnight, and I'm tired, and I have work tomorrow, and I would love to be able to say that right now. But unfortunately for this week's episode, because there are very few comics that are actually coming out this week, I put it off a bit too much even still. This episode goes live in about 6 hours. I have work in about half an hour, and I am recording this pretty much second to last. So just letting you know, I'm going to keep the opening and outro to this show a little bit brief this time, but I wanted to make you aware of the sacrifices I put myself through. I got up a whole half an hour early to do this. I know. Be jealous. So, what do we have coming out this week? Like I said, it's not a whole lot. It is only 11 comics, and in no particular order, they are Batman, Batgirl, Green Lantern Corps, Justice League United, World's Finest, New Suicide Squad, Constantine, Klarion, and our 3 weeklies, Batman Eternal, World's End, and Future's End. Out of that, the only one that's really, really big and worth noting is the Green Lantern Corps book. I say really big. By that, I mean it's part of the event that's ongoing, the Godhead storyline. Everything else is kind of standalone. That being said, I would highly suggest checking out the Constantine story. If you have not been listening to me talk about that, all you need to know is that he went to Earth 2, and things are bad there. But, it's a standout issue. It's very much worth checking out. And, of course, Batman is going through his Endgame stuff, which is always a fan favorite. So, yeah. Not a lot to talk about, but I'm sure we'll have a fully packed episode, so let's go ahead and kick it off with, I'm sure, the event book to begin with. Green Lantern Corps number 36, written by Jensen, art by Bernard Chang. This is the next part of the, why am I blanking on the name? Godhead, the Godhead storyline. And last time, I believe it was in Green Lantern, we had the entire Green Lantern Corps, sans Hal Jordan, as well as the Indigo Tribe, Saint Walker, literally everybody, go into the antimatter universe in order to defend themselves from the New Gods, except for Hal. Hal ditched out. So this issue picks up on Zamaron, which is, of course, the home of the Star Sapphires, and we see them walking through a hallway of crystalline new recruits, saying how they're being, made to feel love or whatever. And it's yeah, we need all the recruits we can get because, whoever stole that Star Sapphire ring is, power we've never faced before. So we got to be ready for them. And then all of a sudden a portal opens up in the sky and they're like, ah, crap, we're not ready yet. And then one of the Zamarons gets a spear through the chest and we meet, I believe her name is Shadowfell. He looks like a he. It's not a he. It's a she. It's Lady Shadowfell. But she's like, hey, Star Sapphires, you're going to kneel before me. And we go to the antimatter universe. We see all the Corps just chilling out in there. And Sinestra's like, hey, everyone, welcome to my old stomping grounds here. Hope you enjoy. There's a fruit bowl over there. And Kilowog's immediately like, this place sucks. This place has always sucked. Even before you were a Yellow Lantern, this place sucks. And he's like, hey, if you want me to open the portal and let you out of here so you can go get attacked by New Gods, by all means, you are welcome to, Kilowog. And John Stewart's like, hey, look, we all ran away. We all are dealing with this. That's what we're supposed to do. And the Guardians who are in there are like, look, we need to reunite everybody here. We need to get us all into a single... Wait a minute. Where's Hal Jordan? God damn it. Did Hal Jordan go out and get Black Hand to join us, even though we specifically told him not to? And it's like, yes. Yes, he did. Oops. Did I not mention that? And the Guardians are like, look, the main focus here is Kyle Rayner. He is the person who has the life equation in him. They are going to turn him into a weapon. Sinestro's like, who gives a crap about Kyle Rayner? Kyle Rayner hasn't been relevant since the 90s. He's not going to do anything. He's going to be nothing. Don't worry about him. And then Kilowog's just like, oh, Sinestro, none of us are going to listen to you. You used your own soldiers as suicide bombers. Indigo Tribe's like, hey, maybe we should talk to the adversary. It's the Indigo Tribe's thing. And St. Walker's like, oh, they got Kyle. We got to go get Kyle. He's my best friend, Kyle. And the Guardians are just like, seriously, yeah, the life equation. We got to do that. And then Sinestro says some more. And then John just flips. He's just like, all right, everybody shut up. Look, we don't have any hope here if we don't stand together. We don't even have all the colors here. Well, we should figure out what the hell's going on with the Red Lanterns, because we're going to need them, however many are left. And we also need some Star Sapphires. And the Guardians point that out as saying oh yes, they pretty much are at full strength. There's nothing that really attacked them. We should definitely go get them. But then John's like, whoa, hold on. Hold on. Look, I don't think we can really trust them after I've been through quite a bit of them in the last event. And Kilowog's just like, hey, they're a target too. We should need to defend them regardless of anything going on. They don't deserve to be wiped out. And John's like, fine, we'll go. Who else is coming with us? And Snap's just like, nobody. We need as many people here as humanly possible. You're going to take the bare minimum to go do your thing. And John's just like, bro, whatever evil stuff you're planning here, it's not going to work because you're incompetent in everything you do. Okay, I just need you to remember that. Got it? And he's just like, fine, whatever. So they build a little bit of a squad and make their way out, and it's just like, yep, well, we're going to need some help, though, because they just blasted through our constructs. We didn't even have a chance to fight them. And so Sinestro sends them to the Weaponer of Quord, which apparently when they last parted, the Weaponer freaking hated Sinestro, and they call that out, and he's just like, everybody hates Sinestro, no big deal. What do you need from me? And he tosses a sword over to John. John catches it with the construct, and he's like, this is just a normal-ass sword. I could break through this. Why would a god not have a problem with this? And he's like, because I've got this thing. And he pulls out a shield that apparently was made from a damaged White Lantern ring, and therefore nothing is able to dent it. And not only that, when John hits the sword against the shield, the sword now is just as strong. It takes on the White Lantern energy, and so it's just possibly strong enough to take down a god. We then see John is getting ready to go. Sornik comes up and is just like, hey, man, it's been a while since we talked, since I've been over in Sinestro's book. Just want to be clear, I heard about the stuff that happened at the end of the last event, what with your girlfriend being a shapeshifter and then killing a kid, and then also you met the real version of your girlfriend who doesn't love you because she was brainwashed into loving you by the Star Sapphires. I just want to make it clear that that is a lot to take on, and maybe you should talk to somebody about that. And he's like, nope, I'm good. This is just what happens to Green Lanterns. And she's like, no, it is not. You were victimized. And he's like, I was not. Don't you dare call me that. Shut the hell up. Sorry, that was a bit strong, but I gotta go fight a war against some gods for a planet that I don't want to save, if only to make sure that they feel my wrath under my boot. Goodbye. So they make their way over to Zamaron. Zamaron's already being attacked by Shadowfell, who's apparently a damn good archer. And we see her fire a blast into the base of the, I don't want to say Violet. Is it Violet? I think it's Violet. Into the Violet Lantern. And she's just like, oh, you guys are going to kneel. Instruct your people to kneel or I'm going to blow it up. And they're just like, we'll never do that. So he blows it up. She blows it up. And one of the Zamarons is caught in the blast. And so the remaining Zamaron comes over to where the rest of the queens are and are like, or sorry, where the rest of the Zamarons are. These are the queens. And it's like, hey, she's dying. I'm the last of the queens. We need to get her to safety. We need to figure out what's going on here. And the rest of the Star Sapphires are like, oh, no one challenges us. No one hurts our sisters and lives. And one of them points out, hey, we're not going to win this fight. And he's like, oh, well, to whatever. We will claim our vengeance. So they are about to launch a strike force. Shadowfell and the rest of her army is like, all right, everyone, bows up, aim for the hearts, and they fire off just a barrage of arrows that are going to kill all of them. But then teleporting in via Indigo Tribe is the Weaponer, Kilowog, John Stewart, and a fourth one, who's just the giant eyeball. So at that point, immediately Shadowfell's like, I'm sorry, hold on, did you just slash my arrows out of the sky? No one's been able to stop my arrows except for Uga's hammer. what kind of weapon you got going on there? It's just like, the white light, I got a blade for him. And she's like, well, no weapon's going to match my bow, even if you're just a mortal. And he's just like, fine, a bow is great until you get into close combat. So he launches into a fight along with the rest of the group. Kilowog tells the Star Sapphires, hey, get everybody together. We're getting the hell out of here. Like, we are not going to be able to win this. We're just holding them off. So all the Star Sapphires gather, and the arrows keep on coming in. They keep doing what they can to fight him off. We see the Weaponer is knocked on his ass, is about to be killed when Penelope's, I don't know. It's the eyeball one. Jumps in and manages to take the hit instead, whereas John saves the Weaponer. Penelope's is like, oh, I know the risks. Get everybody off the planet. So we then see Shadowfell manage to get her helmet knocked off when John tried to help the Weaponer, and as they are all about to start teleporting away with the Indigo Tribe stuff, Shadowfell tells the archers to release the net, and they fire off this net into the sky, and they're just like, whatever, we can just cut through it, no big deal. So the net envelops them all. John attacks it with the sword, and the sword breaks, and just like, well, that's a problem. So at that point, Shadowfell comes up and is just like, I'm going to teach you guys how to be obedient under Highfather, because you're not good. And John's just like, okay, too many of them for us to, or too many of us to even teleport out at this point. We don't have pure spectrum energy to be able to break out of this. What the hell are we going to do? And one of the Zamorons is like, that's not pure spectrum energy. Like, yes, the white light is like the combination, but it's only used at its full strength as an expression of emotion. And our tethers that we use to like connect with love, there is not a force in the universe that could hold that. I guarantee you. So we got to use that. And Kilowog's just like, oh, well, I mean, we can chase the romance across the universe. You guys could do that, but what about the rest of us? And John's just like, look, let them go. They can escape that. We'll be fine. Lead the Sapphires out of here. And then the dying Sapphire's like, wait, hold on. There's another way. Look, I'm not going to make it out of this. You can have my ring, John Stewart. And he's like, you guys are literally the worst. I don't want your damn ring. You brainwashed my girlfriend. And he's like, no, look, okay, yes, technically, but you got to understand, we were just trying to heal them. We didn't try to go as far as we did. It just sort of happened. We're very sorry about that. But they did still love you. We can't create love. We can only embolden it. They still loved you somewhere deep down. So take my ring, John Stewart. You don't have a choice in this matter. So the ring just falls off her finger. She dies. It goes over to John. John becomes a Star Sapphires. One of them is just like, wait a minute, hold on. We don't have dudes in here. And John uses his love for the core itself. He says God, country, core. And he uses that to be able to get everyone out of the net, and it busts right through it, and they all make their way out. And one of the Shadowfell's people is like, hey, you could have shot that arrow out of, or shot that ring out of midair with one of your arrows. You're that skilled. Why'd you let them get out? And Shadowfell's like, the entire reason that we're doing this is just to gather all of them up so we can take care of them later. So yeah, let them go try to get the rest of the colors. It's great. That's all I want them to do. So yeah. John Stewart's now a Star Sapphire. Look, it's fine. I mean, here's the thing. I think I've seen John Stewart in pretty much every color now. Like most of the Green Lanterns, I feel like I've seen in every color now. It's just what they do. To give him the Star Sapphire one, yeah, it may as well have happened. To add on to it, these actual personal trauma regarding the Star Sapphires, of course, that makes it a little bit deeper. It's got some more panache to it, but overall, I don't know. I think this issue had some very high marks to it, but I also think that a lot of these issues aren't doing anything. And that's not to say that nothing is getting done, but it doesn't feel like we're progressing the story in a way that it feels like actual progress has been made. Like in this story, okay, the Star Sapphires are now part of the team. They are in the group. And I get that's the progression. But like for the larger aspect of the new gods, the life equation, all that stuff, it feels so minimal that it's like, why did we devote an entire issue to that? You know? And a lot of the issues in the story feel that way, but that's that's mainly just because they were trying to tie together 4 or 5 different books all into the one event, and that just makes it feel very stretched out. So not a bad issue, it just doesn't feel like a lot really happened. I'll give it a 7. I think that there's 1 or 2 moments in here that I like enough that are earning it the 7. Otherwise, I probably would have given it a 6.5. But hey, I genuinely don't know what's coming up next. I think it is New Guardians, so we'll see what happens over on that one. Batman number 36, written by Scott Snyder, art by Greg Capullo. This is the next part of Endgame. And last issue, the Justice League attacked Batman, and they were all going crazy on him, ending up with Superman, who then started laughing, and Batman's like, ah, crap, it's a Joker story. So we open up with some nightmares that Bruce has at some points, and he says, yeah, I keep, it's leftover stuff from Scarecrow's fear toxin. It's still got some leftover stuff. Like, sometimes it's Harvey Dent with, 2 different bombs. Sometimes it's Lincoln March with more talons. This time, it's a mutated Killer Croc. And every time I do it, it ends up killing me, and I end up dying. But the worst part about it is, there's a sound at the end. And there's always a sound, and it's this cold, empty laughter. So we get back into the Superman fight. Batman's obviously in his Hulkbuster armor, and he's just like, Clark, you gotta listen to me, please. You gotta fight this. Please stop trying to kill me. And he's like, no. And he just starts shoving Batman through the multiple layers of this theater that they're in. Batman's like, okay, I gotta fight this, as if I'm trying to actually beat Superman here. And he opens up some Red Sun knuckle dusters, and he's like, all right, this is my number one thing. It's going to drain you power every time I punch. It's actual Red Suns that I shrunk down to the size of my knuckles, and I call them my Red Giants. And he keeps on punching Superman down into the ground, and he's like, you're going to shake this thing, and they've got to beat the hell out of you. So he punches Superman back out into the street up above. And Superman himself is like, who wins in a fight between Batman and Superman? And he fires his heat vision off at Batman. And he's like, hey, I thought of everything. I have plasma shields to deal with your heat vision. I have a heater to deal with your cold breath. I can do anything you want, okay? So what are you going to do? And then Superman's like, okay. And then he just heat visions the building behind Batman to bring it down on top of him. And Batman's like, ah, crap. I always assumed I'd be fighting Superman on Superman's terms, which means he wouldn't cause collateral damage. But I'm dealing with Zack Snyder's Superman now, so oopsie. So at that point, Superman gets up. He flies up out of the wreckage, grabs Batman, who was trapped underneath of it. And he's like, all right, up and away. And as he flies Batman up in the sky, he starts ripping off his armor, and he's like, oh, where are you, Bruce? There you are. And Batman's just like, Bruce, or Clark, you gotta listen to me, please. I don't want to do this. This is him. This is not you. And he says, or Clark says, he says beg, as talking about the Joker. And Batman's like, all right, I'm done with this. So he spits in Superman's eye, and then he says, I had a special piece of tech made up that had a bunch of kryptonite dust in it. It's essentially kryptonite gum. And I spit it in his eye, and now he's falling down to his death. Or not death, but he's out of commission. And then he specifically says, who wins in a fight between us? The answer is always the same, neither of us. So we then cut over to the makeshift Batcave, the Bat apartment that Bruce, Alfred, and Julia Pennyworth are in. And they're looking at the stuff. They see that all of the Joker toxins were customized to each of the members of the Justice League to make sure that they couldn't be shaken. And he says, okay, they're all right. They're doing fine. They're in Argus headquarters recovering, but it's going to take 4 or 5 days. And Alfred's like, Jesus Christ, a whole week without the Justice League. What happens if someone attacks? What do we do? And he's just like, I don't know. It's a bit of a problem, I admit. But first things first, I need you two to get somewhere safe. And Alfred's like, whoa. Sounds to me like you're trying to bench me in the middle of a Joker thing, and I'm still pissed off after the last Joker thing, so I'm going to need you to not do that. And Bruce is like, I know you're not at full strength right now, and I need you to do that so we can deal with stuff if it comes up. And Alfred's like, nah, I'm in this. I'm here. He attacks you. He attacks all of us. You attack New York. You attack all of us. And so Alfred basically kicks his way back into the family. But he does overexert himself. He has to sit down, and Bruce is like, Alfred, I'm not going to force you to do anything because I know I can't, but like, please just consider what I'm saying here. And he's like, I'll be fine. Go get that bastard. So he relaxes. Julia comes over with Bruce, and they look at like the monitors and stuff like that. And Bruce is like, look, Julia, I know you want to stay for your dad, but the Joker is literally no joke. And I mean that in every intention. And she's like, hey, I've read up on files on him. I know how bad he can be. Like, I get it. And Batman points out, okay, well, if you're going to help me, figure out how he got the whole Justice League at once. Because, like, we don't ever show up to the same place all at the same time. We've got defenses to not have that happen. And Julia's like, well, I remember this gig once in Burma. Not actually, but may as well be. We were at a charity thing. Like, that's when they were all together. Is that what had happened? And he's like, yeah, we were all together at a Gotham Children's Hospital last month. And it's like, well, that's it. So they start talking about Joker's motives at this point and saying when he does this stuff, he is claiming that it is to improve the Batman. He's challenging Batman to make a better Batman, but this time feels deeper than that. It feels more planned out, and it feels much broader. It feels like this is a lover turned into an enemy. So for whatever reason, he checks out the Children's Hospital. It doesn't go anywhere, and then we just skip to the next part, which is Arkham Asylum, which in Batman Eternal has been absolutely destroyed and completely gone. Apparently here it's just run down and empty. So he starts walking through it. He goes to Joker's old cell 0801, because everything's in code and the 8th letter is H, whereas the first letter is A. It spells Ha. And he goes in there and he rips like the cot off the wall. And we meet up with Dr. Eric Border, who was established much earlier on. I think it was like a filler issue even in this book. And Batman's like, hey, Dr. Border, you should be over at Arkham Manor. That's the book that's going on there. Take care of them. We know you don't need to be here. And he's like, hey, yeah, I heard Joker's back. Is that a thing that's happening? He's like, yes, it is. But, like, don't think you can help him. He's just evil. He's not crazy. Okay? Just go back to Arkham Manor. And Batman's like, just standing there trying to analyze clues, seeing if he can figure anything out. And Border's like, you know, Batman, when I first showed up in Gotham, all I wanted to do was help. Like, I wanted to help the inmates and whatnot, but I wanted to help you most of all. But you don't see a helping hand, do you? You don't even see what's right in front of your face. And Batman's like, what do you tell? And then all of a sudden, the cell door slams shut. He's stuck in Joker's cell. And he's like, Eric, what are you doing? Did Joker get to you? And he's like, man, you don't even see me. Look, I had to take some serious muscle relaxants for months. I had to completely fix my face over and over again. I took a medicine for that. This time is makeup, so like it's different. But like even the name of it, and we get into the etymology of Eric, meaning E for eternal and Rakes for prince, and border means border, which is an old obsolete word for jester. God damn it, Scott Snyder. So all of a sudden the gas starts filling up in the room. Batman's trapped and he has to breathe it in. And we see it's Joker. He's been around the whole time as Dr. Eric Border. And Batman's like unable to do anything because the gas has a paralytic in it. And Joker's like, oh, yes, you see, I know you immunized yourself, so I had to give you something special this time around. And yes, it is really me. And he reaches into his knapsack that he's got here and he pulls out his old face and he says, oh yeah, I've come back to see you one last time. See, before it was a game, but now you threw me off a cliff, man. I'm going to take that personally. So here's what's going to happen. And he says, you won't be able to move when it starts, but you'll be aware of the first injection, the second, the third. Party will get going. You'll see it happening, but you won't be able to do anything. And it's intercut with showing people getting Jokerized all over Gotham. And it's just happening, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop it. And Joker goes up to the bars where Batman is, and he's like, see, no more games, no more jokes. This is it. I'm done. We're wrapping it. This is the end game. And he says, I thought we could have had fun, you and me, but now I know better because you don't know anything about me. Like, you still think I'm this total stranger. And, like, you pretend to know me, but deep down, nah, you know nothing about me. And you'll see just how little you know soon enough. So he reaches into his jacket, pulls out a revolver, aims it at Batman. It's got the bang flag. And then he says, oh, and when you come out of it, everyone in Gotham, the whole city's going to be laughing at you. And he pulls the trigger once again. And this time it actually goes blam. Theoretically, Batman may be shot. I doubt it. So, I mean, here's the thing. the part with him being Eric Border, the reveal as he's coming out of the gas and you see his face there, menacing as hell. Love the idea the Joker's just been around this whole time, but like he's been able to disguise himself the same way that Batman goes from Bruce Wayne. Like, I really appreciate that. But for the love of goddamn Christ, stop doing the etymology stuff. Scott, please, I'm begging you. I don't need to know that Eric can be broken down into Proto-Germanic roots of Eternal Prince. Please. It doesn't make it okay. Just say, like, oh, I picked the name randomly. Like, that would be just as much. Or better yet, get it, like, closer than having to go into Proto-Germanic roots. That's my only real criticism about it. I read that panel of just like, and border is a homophone for border, meaning jester. Shut up. The rest of it's fine, though. I really appreciate Alfred's characterization. The way the Superman fight ended up felt fine. I don't think it felt like either character was jobbed there. So overall, I'm going to say this one is an 8. It's still a good issue overall. It's setting up the whole, like, okay, Joker's pissed off and he's finally going to end it. I'm all right with that. Just stop with your clever little wordplay, Scott. I'm begging you. Batgirl number 36, written by Cameron Stewart and Brendan Fletcher, art by Babs Tarr, and apparently Cameron Stewart again as well. So, last issue, whole new status quo. We're in Burnside. Barbara has lost all of her Batgirl equipment because she was storing it in Black Canary's house while she was away, and then it all caught on fire. Also, something about her having an algorithm that she had on a hard drive that got wiped. It's a whole thing. But anyway, end of the issue was somebody texted her and they know that she is Batgirl. So we open up this issue with her going out shopping with her friends. The new friend is Frankie, along with Dinah. And Frankie's like, hey, go on, try on some clothes, like, have some fun. And she's like, I have no money, and if I did, I'd be buying a new hard drive in order to get my algorithm back. And Dinah's like, you mean buying me a new wardrobe because my other one burned up because of your stuff, right? That's what you meant to say, right? And she's like, yeah, I know that. So eventually Frankie goes to try on some clothes, and Babs is like, hey, could I maybe talk like Black Canary to Batgirl sort of thing? Because like someone knows my secret identity. I'm kind of freaking out about that. And Black Canary's like, maybe you should have been a bit more careful about that. You suck. And I'm still angry at you. And Frankie overhears them talking about Batgirl, and she's like, oh, Batgirl, she's so cool. Check it out. Here's this picture of her on Instagram, or whatever their version of Instagram is. And everyone, she's got like 1,000 likes on there. And Barbara's like, oh, wow, okay. So she ends up next day going to Burnside College. She goes to try to talk to her advisor, or so the person who's in charge of whether or not she gets research stuff, and goes to the office. There's no answer. She gets interrupted by this younger looking guy named Jeremy DeGroot, and turns out that he is someone who is there to help out. And the other guy who's there is out temporarily because of some weird property dispute or something. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm also in the department. I'll lead you to where you need to be at. So they put Barbara up in a room. She has a research assistant called Nadima, and Jeremy is hopelessly flirting with Babs, saying like, oh yeah, well, if you need me, I'm down the hall, but you knew that I'm bye. So at that point, Barbara breaks down and she's like, oh god, I can't believe it. And Nadima's like, I know, right? He's cute, but he's way too old. There's no way. And she's like, what? No, I'm not. Don't worry about that. I'm talking about my research stuff. Like, I lost all of this info, but I may be able to recover it, but I need a drive, and I don't have a drive to transfer it over to. And she's like, oh, my brother's in the IT department. I'll just text him. Like, robotics department. He'll get you a new drive, no problem. So she's super thrilled about that. She goes down to the robotics department. Apparently there was a break-in, and someone stole a couple of AI-based motorcycles with like jet boosters and stuff on it. But she's like, oh, that's crazy. And he's like, yeah, no doors were unlocked. It must have been an inside job. So he gets her a computer drive, passes it over, and as she's leaving, there's an equation on a whiteboard, and she just casually like erases one of the numbers and replaces it, and everyone's like, oh my god, it works now! So she's super uber smart as well. As she goes out into the common grounds, We hear people yelling for help. She goes out to see who it is, and a couple of girls are on those motorcycles, and she immediately puts two and two together. So she heads into an abandoned building, puts on her Batgirl outfit, and then comes back out, and she's like, hey, those bikes don't belong to you. And then these girls pull out katanas, start charging towards Batgirl. She starts dodging around them. They do manage to get one slash off on her arm, and she's like, man, I just bought this jacket. So she doesn't currently have a grappling hook. She instead decides to parkour her way up onto a tree, and the motorcycle girls just start circling around. Security starts coming out, and they're like, tomorrow cries danger, and then they drive away. And she's like, what the hell was that about? So, cut to, we see her trying to get the data over onto her other drive. She's hanging out with her roommate, and Dinah comes in being like, you two are nerds. I'm out of here. I'm going to go find a bar. Bye. And she just leaves. And Frankie's like, wow, she's kind of a bitch. When is she getting out of here? And she's like, just let her stay. I kind of ruined her whole life. And she's like, yeah, totally. But also, you got to understand, I'm working on that hookup dating app, and like, it's crazy complicated, and it's only getting more so. And I'm sure that's going to come up later, but not in this issue. So at this point, Babs pulls up an old anime she remembers called Automata. And she's like, hey, do you remember this anime? And she's like, no, not at all. And she pulls up an episode, and she's like, I thought I remembered this. Take a look. And it's the two biker chicks in anime form. And they even call out, tomorrow cries danger. And she's like, all right, I have a lead. So she goes to a kawaii shop. It's Japanese. It's just import stuff. And the guy's like, hey, do you like this new album? It's by this Japanese singer. I think it's much better than older stuff. And she's like, I don't know. Hey, can you tell me about some this anime called Automata? And he's like, no, because I don't go by the American name. I liked it when it was Japanese and called Science Battle Hero Nuclea. And she's like, all right, whatever. Do you know about it? And he's like, yeah, but it's like super niche. Barely anybody knows about it. I'm surprised you know about it. And she's like, oh, so do you know anybody in the area who does know about it? Maybe two girls who would dress up as the villains, the jawbreakers? And he's like, oh, yeah, no. There are these two twins who were like super into that stuff. They go show up to all the events. That would definitely be the ones who did it. That they actually ordered some Blu-rays. If you run into them, can you tell them to pick up their Blu-rays? So Babs makes her way out. She's trying to hack into the GCPD using the same hack she's always done. But this time, for whatever reason, her login info's been revoked. And she's like, damn it, I've been using that for years. All right, well, got to find something else then. So she goes to the robotics lab late at night. The brother of Namina, I'm sure he has a name, I didn't catch it, is sleeping there. And he's like, oh my God, Batgirl, is it really you? I just joined your fan page. You're so cool. How can I help you? And she's like, can you unlock this door? I just want to check for evidence about the bike thing. And he's like, oh yeah, cool. So they check to see that there were boot treads, like motorcycle boots, and he's like, oh yeah, I managed to figure it out. The thieves would have needed to swipe a key card, but they didn't break their stride, which means all the doors were unlocked remotely. So they had help from someone else in here. And she's like, do you have GPS on them? I was like, yeah, but they were shut down before. And now all of a sudden they turn back on again. And he's like, oh, they're down by the factory district. And she's like, great, awesome. By the way, can you make me a grappling gun? So she makes her way down to the warehouse district. Inside, she comes across a GPS device that is attached to the little anime protagonist of Automata. And she's like, all right, well, that means they got to be nearby. And then all of a sudden, motorcycles come scrolling up. They swipe their swords at her again. She manages to dodge out of the way. It's a pretty decent fight scene here. She grabs one of their capes. The other one comes up and cuts them free. They push her out of the way, and then they start coming up to attack. And as they are coming up, Babs thinks back to her childhood watching this anime. She sees the hero knocked down as the villains are coming up, and it's like, oh, our rolling scissor attack. And Babs starts to get upset, and her dad comes in, and Jim's like, hey, what's wrong? And she's like, oh, the hero's going to get killed. And she's like, the hero is super smart and intelligent. Let's see if she can figure her way out of this. So we see in the show, she's like, oh, I can't engage my jet boots, but like, I'm no match for them on their bikes. How much their weakness be? And Jim's like encouraging Batgirl, like, they have a weakness, Babs. You just got to see it. You got to think about it. And apparently in the show, they have a pattern where they drive in single file before every attack, and then they split up at like the last second, and it's always predictable. And in the show, the protagonist blasts her extendable arm cable to basically clothesline him. And so Batgirl does the same thing. She pulls out the grappling hook, she moves out of the way, and fires her jet cable. And they are clotheslined. Actually, only one of them is. So then they're both on dueling motorcycles. They charge at each other, and Batgirl manages to knee them in the face. So she gets them tied up, and they're like, so what? We don't get our money now? And she's like, what are you talking about? It's like, oh, well, we got messages from someone claiming to be Batgirl saying, kill Batgirl. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you think that's a thing? It's like, I don't know. It just made sense. It was saying stuff like, keep it up and don't stop until I'm not breathing anymore. And it promised us like $500,000 if we did so. And she's like, all right, well, that wasn't me, and you guys are stupid for trying that. So explain it to the cops. And there are cops outside, and she grapple hooks away. And then our last little page here is her talking to her research team. They're looking over her stuff that she does still have, and she's like, yeah, so what do you think? And they're like, oh, it's great. Yeah, you can start research, no problem. Let's get right into it. The one dude comes in. I better get his name because he seems like he's going to be important. He comes in and he's like, oh, hey, I hope you've got everything that you needed off of that drive. I hope that it all worked out. His name is Kadir. I'm not going to remember that. And they're just like, wait a minute, hold on. You're telling us that you deleted your whole algorithm? She's like, kinda, accidentally. Please don't tell anyone. And then Frankie walks in for whatever reason saying, oh, hey, Babs, is this that cute professor you were talking about? And everyone just sits there awkwardly. Womp womp. It's fine. It's an all right issue. I mean, I like the style of it. There are certain pages where the text gets just way too much. Like the scene where she goes into the Japanese shop is like just a wall of text, just like so much. And it's supposed to get across like this character's talking too much, but it's a struggle for me to read. That being said, when it gets to the fight scenes, it works perfectly fine. I think that it is very well choreographed and does a great job of showing, not telling. So overall, I think it evens out to a perfectly good issue. I'll go ahead and say it's a 7.5. Got a lot of promise, hoping it can get up to that 8 sooner rather than later. Justice League United number 6, written by Jeff Lemire, art by Neil Edwards. So, last issue, good lord. The little alien kid named Ultra is apparently a threat to the Legion in the future, so the Legion in the future went back in time in order to kill it. And then also there's this giant god creature in the future named Infinitus, who is apparently Ultra, who apparently is working with Blith. Also, Hawkman's alive and working with Blith, and then from the future Infinitus came back and is now attacking. Also, there's a group that's working with Blith as well called the Cadre. It's like 17 different characters, and they introduce 6 more by the end. So we open up with Ultra and Equinox, aka Miabin, who are just down in the bunker as the fight is raging on overhead, and Miabin calms down Ultra as he's freaking out because of the fight. Just like, hey, you know, your name's Ultra. It's my name's Miabin. It means it's going to be a good day in Kree. And she's like, oh, I like Miabin. Oh, I'm happy to be your friend. And so they just hold hands slightly as the rumbling goes on overhead. Then we get the fight between the Justice League United, the Legion of Superheroes, and the Cadre. And it seems like it's everyone against the Cadre at this point. So at least there's a little bit of a team up there. So Marsh Manor is going as a guy named Black Mass. I'll just give the names real quick. Shrike. Honest to God, I don't know if Shrike is Legion or not. Overmaster, Shatterfist, Black Mask, and Nightfall. So he's going against a teleporter named Black Mass. We see Shrike is going up against Alana. In mid-fight, Alana, who's using her jetpack, gets switched with Adam Strange and then falls down to the planet. Mon-El's like, why does that keep happening? I don't understand. Meanwhile, on the moon of Ringor, Supergirl's going up against Blith and is like, Bith. I genuinely don't care. It's just like, what have you done? What is that thing up in the sky? And he's just like, it is the beginning and the end. It is the Alpha and the Omega. The new universe will consume us all. Need not be scared. And she's like, I ain't scared of nothing. Throws Bith through a wall. Bith then does some weird hand tentacle things and starts wrapping up Supergirl. And then we cut over to Hawkman fighting against Green Arrow. Arrow's like, Hawkman, you're being brainwashed. And he's like, no, I'm not. I just believe Bith is my best friend. And it's like, yeah, that's the brainwashing, man. So Stargirl and Animal Man go up against, I don't even know, just some random ass soldiers like in a space cult. And then Stargirl's like, hey, whatever's going on up in space is going to be a problem. But then she ends up getting shot by some of the space cult. Animal Man's like, get the hell away from her. And he turns all rabid 90s Wolverine style, straight up slashes the dudes to death, and then comes back for Courtney just being like, hey, you're not allowed to die, kid. I've gotten used to you. So back on Earth, we see Mon-El fighting against the big one. I don't know, whatever his name is. And as they're like throwing punches, it seems like everything's going to be fine. But then Overmaster, the big one, says, hey, Black Mass, I was connected telepathically to one of them who, when they were trying to weaken me, they've got the kid in a bunker underneath here. Go get her. And so Black Mass teleports down, grabs hold of Ultra and Miabin, and like the rest of the group try to get into the bunker as fast as possible, but he teleports both of them out back to the moon of Ringor. And it's like, hey, Beth, I got this guy. What do you want him? And so Supergirl punches Bith, flies to get Ultra, but then Black Mass teleports Supergirl back down to Earth. So right now at this point, it's just Equinox and Ultra trying to hold back Bith and Black Mass. And she uses her abilities to toss them aside and just like, all right, the other heroes should be up here, Ultra. We got to go find them. Let's go. But Ultra is just entranced by the portal up in the sky. He's not moving anywhere. So Equinox gets captured by Bith as he gets up and just like, all right, well, she's of no use to us anymore, but we won't kill her because she's that pathetic, and we definitely don't need to make sure she's taken care of. So Bith just knocks her aside, knocks her out, and says, oh, Ultra, you see that star up there? It's you, and you, my beautiful child. You must go there and be reborn as a god. So we go back over to the Green Arrow Hawkman fight. Hawkman's about to kill Green Arrow. Animal Man busts in with Form of the Rhino and knocks Hawkman out of the way. And then Stargirl blasts him with laser beams from her staff. And it's just like, okay, well, he's taken care of. So, hey, Miabin, what are you doing up here on planet? And Stargirl like greets her and just like, oh yeah, I've heard a lot about you. I think it's going great. So at that point, Bith says, all right, it's too late. It's already begun. And all of these weird projection thing demons come out of the portal, start blasting down to the planet. They attack all the heroes. They yell fall back, but there's nowhere to fall back to. They're completely surrounded. We cut back down to Earth where Supergirl comes through the portal. She's a bit disoriented, but she immediately tells Manhunter, like, they got the kid's on the moon, you got to get to the moon. And Manhunter's like, Sardath, give us a Zeta beam, send us to the moon. And Sardath's like, there's some sort of energy source in the way, I can't do it, I can't get you to the moon. And Brainiac 5, who this entire issue I've been ignoring, but he's just been standing off to the side, shouting out little like, oh, hey, don't get hit by that guy. Oh, hey, you're doing great over there. Like, he hasn't done anything. He says, hey, Martian Manhunter, don't even panic about it. We've already sent reinforcements to Ringor. And Martian Manhunter's like, Jesus fucking Christ, what are you talking about? And he's like, oh, but you see, the Legion has its own away team who have been trapped in this period since the beginning of the New 52. May I introduce the Legion Lost? So we have the Legion Lost up on the moon of Ringor. That's 6 more characters. All right, it's fine. It's one big fight. That's really all it is. It's one extended fight period where the point of the book is get Ultra on the moon and then make it so that they need reinforcements because we want to bring the Legion Lost back. Okay, I'm fine with that. And honestly, for Justice League United, I'm extra fine with that because, like, this is absolutely the, hey, we need to pull in the C through F tiers of the books, like, the heroes that we've introduced in the New 52. We introduced our own with Equinox. Now we're pulling the Legion back. We're really going to make it work. That being said, I don't think you need more characters here. Like, I'm sure that Jeff Lemire has some sort of affinity for the Legion of Superheroes, and he's like, well, if they're not going to greenlight another Legion book, I'm at least going to pull them into here so I can have my own little story with them. So be it, fine, I'm okay with that. But, like, the part that bothers me now, that they're acknowledging that Legion Lost is here, and they better rectify this, is the whole reason Legion Lost is here is because the time bubble stuff wouldn't work to send them back to the future because there was a barricade of Flashpoint. So how is the current Legion back here now and not going to be taking the Legion Lost with them back to the future? This is some Biff Tannen BS, you ask me. Whatever. Point being, this independent issue is okay. It's not great. It's one long fight scene, and whatever it's doing, it's getting weird about it. It's taking its time, and it's not exploring things directly. It's leaving things all wibbly-wobbly. So I'm going to say this one is a 6. I'm not that in love with it. Hopefully we can get something cool out of the next couple issues, but for right now, this is just reminding me why I was happy that the new 52 Legion of Superheroes book ended as early as it did. World's Finest number 28, written by Paul Levitz, art by Jed Dougherty. So this is continuing on the arc where Red Tornado / Lois Lane is giving the rundown of the histories of Earth 2, basically just Superman and Batman, but this issue also includes Wonder Woman and how she ties into stuff. So we open on Paradise Island where all the Amazons are gathered and they have sacrificed some animal, and they're like, oh, tell us, dear Oracle, what the hell is going on out there? And the Oracle says, I see the death of Apollo and the end of the Amazons, and he will fall protecting you, and Olympus shall totally die. And everyone's like, oh my god, give us some hope. Come on, what can we do about this? And Wonder Woman's like, hey, we're the God's chosen warriors. You just point us and we will take them out. And the Oracle's like, hey, is that Diana? Hey, Diana, you straight up slept with the enemy, so maybe just sit this one out, bitch, okay? Just shut up. And she's like, no, oh my god, I had no idea. So as everyone's like running over to Wonder Woman because she's like doused in smoke or something at this point, one of the ones come forward and being like, please, I'll ask on Diana's behalf. Who do we punch? What do we do? And it's just like, no, there's nothing you guys can do. Only Diana can be involved in this. And also, there's 2 little boys, and their lives now hang in the balance. And then Minerva shows up, full-on goddess, just like, oh, hold up. I have decided the Oracle is stupid, and I am intervening. We will depend on no little 2 boys. We are strong women. I'm going to get all you guys out of here, and we're all going to take off together, and screw Olympus. We'll do our own thing. And Wonder Woman's like, Minerva, respectfully, I decline. This is my quest. I am of royal blood. I am not going to run away. And Minerva's like, I'm sorry, maybe you missed the part where I'm a goddess and you are immortal. Don't think you're cool here. You are hubris. And then friggin' Mercury shows up and he's like, I like your spunk. You're cool, Wonder Woman. And he changes her outfit somehow just by touching her into the normal Wonder Woman outfit. Just says, hey, come on. I want to show you some stuff out there. And so they fly off. We then go over to the zoo where young Bruce Wayne and young Thomas Wayne are having a nice little father-son day. And they go about and he's like, you want to see my favorite exhibit, son? And he's like, boy, yeah. And they go into the House of Nocturnal Mammals that has a big old bat over it. And we see that there's a man smoking a cigarette waiting outside. So as they go in, Thomas is like, oh yes, those are vampire bats. We have some of those around the grounds too, and you can see them around dusk sometimes. They live in the caves. And Bruce is like, can we go looking for him, son? And he's just like, oh yeah, sure. One day I'll call off at the hospital and we'll go ahead and do it as a family. He's like, promise? And he's like, promise. Ah! And so then he gets attacked by the dude who is smoking a cigarette. And before anything else happens, in rushes the butler, not Alfred, but Jarvis, and he's just tackles this dude to the ground, or tries to, and Bruce is like, where'd you come from? And he's just like, oh, just watching over you, sir. And he starts getting in a fight with the man. We then cut over to Kansas, where young Superman, and I mean like, he looks to be 6, maybe younger. But I think he's supposed to be older, based off how he talks. And he walks out into this field, and it turns out they've got GPS bracelets on him because his parents were worried to one day just fly off to, like, Albania. And so he's like, I bet I can do it. And he flies up into the area. He's like, I can! And then all of a sudden, a portal opens up. And then the last issue, portal opened up, and a new god woman stepped out and said, hey, let me take your baby. And they were like, no. Well, now she's come back again, just being like, hey, you are super powerful, and you were to become a god. And she's like, oh, what? You know where I came from? And she's like, yeah, totally. I met your real parents once. I told them you'd be special. So come on with me. Let's go get your destiny taken care of. And he's just like, wait a minute. I don't want to go. Like, I don't want to leave home. And she's like, what? I'm taking you where you really belong. And he's like, oh, are my birth parents there? And she's like, absolutely. And he's like, okay, let's go. So they're about to walk through the boom tube when all of a sudden, lasso of truth comes out of nowhere, pulls Clark away, and she's like, you false goddess, you will not be taking him today. And she's like, false goddess? I'm sorry, I'm more true goddess than your stupid-ass little Mercury thing. Come at me. So then we take a second and we cut to an airfield and we meet the actual Lois Lane. Mind you, Lois has been narrating all this. How she knows some of it, I don't know. But she's apparently at an airfield and she's watching the planes take off and she's like, oh, I loved seeing the planes. I love flying. And then all of a sudden, Mercury shows up saying, whoa, hey, hold up. I'm coming with a gift. And Lois doesn't say anything this whole time. But she's like, okay, hold on. There's going to be a time when you must live beyond death. And therefore, I'm giving you this spirit of Eurus, who, as far as I can tell, the whole thing is flying. She will be embedded inside of you to make your transition easier. So that's that. And also, I'm wiping your memory that this ever happened. And she just does that and then flies away. And, Lois's narration doesn't acknowledge it happened, so clearly that's not supposed to be anything, but this whole story is Lois's narration. So whatever, either way, she's like, oh, I always loved flying for some reason. So then we go back to Kansas. Wonder Woman's fighting off against whoever this new god is. I think it's still supposed to be Granny Goodness, but they never directly say it. Clark, apparently, I'm just going to read this caption here. I could still see her through Clark's eyes, impossibly strong, incredibly beautiful, and boy, she sure wasn't from Kansas. If she hadn't turned out to be an older woman, centuries older, I don't think I would have had a chance after that childhood crush. That's told from the perspective of Lois, through the perspective of Clark. I don't know who had the crush, but regardless, she fights off against this new god, punches her in the face, and just being like, oh, the boy's destiny is here. The Oracle says the world depends on him. And the new guy's just like, oh, well, then your world is doomed. You will all fall beneath Apocalypse. And Wonder Woman's like, that's a stupid name and you're all stupid gods. So she ends up fighting against the woman until the woman's like, whatever, I'm out of here. You suck anyway. And then Mercury picks up Wonder Woman and says, oh, but the other one's in danger. We gotta go. So then Martha Kent comes out and is like, oh, Clark, I saw the GPS signal disappear and I was so worried. Oh, what happened? And we see the boom tube is still going in the middle of this field. And from the other side, the new goddess is like, well, if I can't have you, I'm going to kill your mom. And she fires off an energy blast at Martha. Clark jumps in the way. He, of course, survives it because he's Superman. And Martha's like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. You're just so special. I guess I got to get used to this sort of thing happening because this seems like it's going to be a regular occurrence with you being all superpowered and all. And then we go back over to the zoo. Jarvis is still fighting against the bearded man smoking a cigarette. And then Jarvis ends up going down. So both Thomas and Jarvis are out. Bearded man's got a gun and he's like, hey, out of the way, kid. I'm gonna shoot your bears. You're not on my contract. Only your dad is. And Bruce is just like, get away from my father. And he just lunges at the guy, pulls his gun away, bites him on the hand. And the bearded guy's just like, all right, well, it said I didn't have to kill the kid, but I have no problem killing the kid. Pulls out a knife, and that's where Wonder Woman comes in, already smiling. And she just knocks the guy out with a heavy punch and just says, ha, I say you can't do that. Goes over to the little child, Bruce, just being like, hey, one day we're going to be best friends. And he's like, I am a child and you are a strange, busty woman. And she's just like, yeah. And then Mercury pulls her away, just says, well, that's it for your destiny here. He's going to forget all about this. Don't worry about it. Bye. And then he does. And then she flies away. And then we just show that Red Tornado is the one who's narrating all this. Look, I can appreciate you wanting to do the backstories of Superman and Batman in this Earth. I can also appreciate that you want Wonder Woman to be a little bit more involved than what she actually was. But having it be a bunch of nobody saw that, was it a dreams, and memory erasing, not the answer, bro. Not what you should be doing here. I don't know. I just found it funny at points. Even the point where we just cut over to Lois Lane, who has nothing to do with Wonder Woman, is just and now you have a little spirit of a goddess inside you too. Bye. Forget all of this. Okay. I'm sure we're setting up for something, but it's kind of weird that we're doing that this way. It's a weird issue. This whole plot's been weird, and it's only been 2 issues. I'm going to say this is I can't give it more than like a 6, right? This is just too weird. And there's a bunch of weird panels as well. I'm giving it a 6. I don't know what I want from this, but this ain't it. New Suicide Squad number 4, written by Sean Ryan, art by Tom Derenick. So last issue, Deadshot got captured by Deathstroke, and Deathstroke took on a different part of the team, and then there was a bunch of other stuff going on with Joker's daughter. Don't worry about it. So this issue picks up with Vic Sage calling up the Secretary of Defense, basically being like, hey man, Amanda Waller's got the button to blow people's brains up. I want that button. Let me have that button. He's like, I gotta run that by the president. The president doesn't like too many people having that button. He's like, gimme, 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 gimme. So at this point, he's just like, look, I'll pass it up, but like, seriously, you got to take whatever answer we get out here. So then we cut over to somewhere in Russia where Deathstroke's like, how you feeling, Deadshot? And he's like, not good, man. I've got a lot of broken stuff going on here. And Deathstroke's like, yeah, I know, totally. And he just starts beating him with like electrified taser pole or something like that. And he calls it, like, he makes little jokes and stuff. He's just like, yeah, well, despite all my broken stuff, I've still got 2 eyes, right? And Deathstroke's like, bro, I don't even know how you're still alive in this industry. Like, you are pathetic. It's totally weak. And like, Deadshot comes back with like, dude, what do you mean? At least I stuck with the team. You betrayed us like after 5 minutes. And Deathstroke's like, there's no such thing as teams. Everyone's out on their own. And he's like, yeah, well, what about the Red Sox? And then he gets hit again. So Deathstroke just continues to beat him up. And Deadshot's like, look, when you betrayed us, did you already tell them about like what we really are? Did you go that far? And he's like, no. I understand the necessity of secrets, and I can sell that for a much higher price later on. And Deadshot's like, well, what did you tell him? Just like, that I knew I could find you and bring you all down if I managed to torture you for the information first. And he's like, but I genuinely don't know where the rest of the team is. And he's like, yeah, I know that. I just want to kill you. I just want to beat you until you're dead. So at that point, an alarm goes off, intruder alert, and Deathstroke's like, well, we both know who that is. Cut to Black Manta and Harley jumping their way, killing people, shooting, slicing, dicing, the whole shebang. Harley's happy to follow Manta's lead, and he's like, well, it's fine time that someone's finally a leader around here. So they start making their way down the halls. Harley goes absolutely nuts, killing people, and they end up taking out the entirety of the squadron that was looking over them here. So Black Manta kicks down one of the doors, finds Deadshot tied up, and he's surprised. He's like, you guys came back for me? And it's like, yeah, of course, we're a team. And Deathstroke standing in the corner is like, you people in your damn teams. And Deadshot's like, oh yeah, I forgot to mention he's here. So Black Manta takes on Deathstroke while Harley finishes getting Deadshot out. But then we cut back over to Belle Reve. And Vic Sage is on the phone again with the Secretary of Defense. And Secretary of Defense is like, hey, buddy, just want to let you know, President said no on the button thing. So Amanda Waller's going to have that. And he's like, what? How can I be in charge of everything but not the button? How can you not give me the button? And he's like, it's a power balance thing. Look, we're going with the president's lead here. He's like, president's freaking stupid. You're stupid too. You're all dummies. I don't like the fact that any of you are not giving me access to the button. And Secretary's like, bro, take a breath. Understand who you're talking to here. And you need to, like, forget about this. And he's like, oh, well, you have no idea what I'm dealing with here. And the Secretary's like, okay, bye now, click. So we then go back to the Deathstroke Black Manta fight. And Manta's just like, you betrayed the team, you put us all in danger. And Deathstroke's like, no, hold up. I want to know, why are you actually on this team? What are you doing here? Why are you fighting against me? He's just like, oh, I have my reasons. And Deathstroke's like, oh my God, you're actually looking for a purpose here. Jesus Christ, I thought you were like me, Black Manta. I thought you were like the heartless killer, but nah, you're just as pathetic as the rest of them. That is so sad. So he just starts beating the crap out of Black Manta, smashing his helmet in the walls, and like is about to thrust in with the sword. When all of a sudden Harley jumps on his back because he says something along the lines of like, you just got to give in to the insanity of the world. And Harley's like, can do. And he's just like, no, look, as much as I don't like what Black Manta or Deadshot on, Harley, you are actually the worst. Like, you are a rabid dog who just needs to be put down. And as he's about to do That's a Harley. All of a sudden, his chest explodes, and he looks down and sees a bullet hole, and he's like, well, where did that come from? And he slams forward to the ground. He's out cold for a while. We see Deadshot manage to get a gun, and he pulls the trigger, and everyone's like, hey, great shot. And he's like, I was aiming for the head. I never miss. What the hell's going on? Anyway, my legs are broken. Can somebody please drag me out of here? And just like, yeah, we'll get you to the airlift. We just got to go pick up Joker's daughter at the same time. Let's get the hell out of Russia. So Vic Sage then goes back, talks to Amanda in the conference room, and he's like, all right, well, things can't continue like this. And she's like, yep. And he's like, oh, so we agree? And it's like, are you admitting to the fact that this is far too chaotic for any one mission to be? And he's just like, oh, I thought you could handle a little bit of chaos. And she's like, oh, I absolutely can. But this is not a little bit of chaos, man. There's like nothing that we can control here. And that's why we need to plan and have contingencies and order here. You can't just send them in all willy-nilly like that. And he's just like, excuse me. We're not going to have any order if you don't start listening to what I say. And she's like, well, you don't know what you're doing. And he stands up. He's like, oh, this is insubordination. I'm not afraid of you, Waller. And she's like, you should be. He's like, you're a bitch. And she's like, you're a child. And he goes to throw a punch, to which Waller then does some self-defense, gets him down on the desk. And he's like, oh, you're attacking me? And she's like, dude, there are so many cameras in this room that saw you throwing the first punch here. Don't even, I am not only your subordinate, I am an African-American woman. Do you know how bad that's going to play out on you? And he's like, whatever, fine, whatever. And she's like, just let me do my job. So he gets up and he's like, look, this is never going to work. You're insane, Waller. And as he walks out, he's like, finally, we agree on something. And then we get a little bit of an epilogue. Apparently one of the Russian soldiers who was in the subway network when it all crashed down is approached by this big smiling man who says, hey, you aren't looking so good. If you want to get your true potential or whatever else, go ahead and give me a call. And he hands him a card for Mars Systems, Research, Engineering, and Defense. So I'm sure that's referencing something. No, it's not a bad issue. It's just... Here's the thing. I think that this issue is actually very good in its pacing and the way that the characters interact. I think that there is a lot to like about this. The problem being is that the past 3 issues have been so for me that finally wrapping it up in a satisfying manner doesn't feel that satisfying. Like, the issue independently on its own is good. It's a good issue. But it's coming on the heels of, well, all right, I guess that's fine. Like, not too much was really good in those ones. So it's kind of a bit of a toss-up here. I think I'm going to try to rate it independently. I'm just going to say that this issue on its own, I give it a 7. It's a good issue. It's not great. It's not outstanding. It's got some good character beats, but for the most part, it's just good. That being said, if I look at it at the larger whole of the end of this arc, it's probably going to dip down to like a 6.5 or a 6. It's going to stay at the 7 officially, but it does come with the baggage of what came before. So, yeah, all in all, it's I like the way that Vic Sage and Amanda are battling against each other. It's got some cool stuff we can do there. According to the cover of the next book, we are getting a whole new team layout, so curious to see how that's going to go. But yeah, it's got promise. It's always had promise. I just hope that it can deliver. Constantine number 19, written by Ray Fawkes, art by Jeremy Haun. So last issue, we had a whole long thing of how Constantine realized he was teleported to a parallel Earth, and now he's trying to find the real version, or this universe's version of himself, in order to get out of here. And also it's Earth 2. So we open up in London, and we get a shot of like this cloud thing. And then all of a sudden we come back down to Earth, and Constantine's like, well, it didn't take long. And he sees like a newspaper flying by that says like end of the world, and all like these decapitated heads and windows. Streets are on fire, cars are exploded, dead bodies litter the streets. And he's like, well, everything's fallen apart. Civilization is gone, but I better take it easy myself. And he says, like, yeah, there's some kind of broadcast going out right now. You can feel it in the air. Waves of fear and rage and despair, but, like, it's not hopeless yet. And he says his mantra for this issue, which is, this isn't hell. This is just another possible universe, but it's not the real one. Anything that happens here doesn't actually matter because this isn't reality. And so he starts a car, he gets into it. He looks over at a car nearby of him, one that like was driving by. The dad's like panicking, the mom's freaking out, and there's a kid in the back seat who's just looking over with shell-shocked eyes, and he's just like, not real, don't care. And so he starts the car and he starts driving down the road, and he's like, all right, I know that the other me is going to be in Liverpool. It's going to take some time to get there, but I just gotta go. And as he starts to drive off, someone fires off a gun at the car from behind him, and he's just like, well, you know, whatever. It starts to rain. I've made my way out, but I swear to God, I just cannot be bothered to deal. And he looks out the window as he's driving by, and he sees people getting stabbed, people getting bludgeoned, and he's like, it's not real. They can kill each other all they want. They're not real people. It doesn't matter. And he has to keep on repeating that over and over again. Eventually, he gets hit with a Molotov cocktail, which then someone jumps on top of his car with a motorcycle and like cracks his neck open, and like he's like, whatever, don't stop, he's not real, he's not a real person, doesn't matter. Sure, he's dead, doesn't matter. None of it's real, none of it except for you. And he keeps on driving. He manages to get an hour into it. He hasn't seen anyone for miles, so he gets out, he stretches his legs. As he makes his way through a wooded area, he sees that the woods respond to him and like start parting, and he's like, okay, that was one of my magic things from the other Earth. Good to see it still works here. And he comes across a fairy circle, which for anyone who doesn't know is a bunch of mushrooms that spawn up as a circle. And he says that these things are actually to hide little teleportation spells, like little rips in time and space. And he's able to see that this one would end him up in Glasgow. And he's like, I could probably move it over to Liverpool if I just sacrifice a little bit, but it would be risky and dangerous because with there being two versions of me in this Earth, things might get a bit messy, so I need to take the long way around. So he goes back to his car, he hops back on the freeway. He sees a city on the horizon, a town called Rugby, and apparently it's like on fire. The entire town is just lit up in a huge flame, when then all of a sudden from the sky starts lighting up and freaking meteors start coming down. And as he's dodging around them on the freeway, he's like, of course it's meteors, it had to be meteors. And he starts laughing at the absurdity of it, and he starts swerving around, and he's like, all right, yeah, just give me like trumpets and angels if you're gonna go with this much of an end of the world, you know. So he ends up flooring it, and he's like, whatever, just drive. This is all just a nightmare. It only feels like it's coming after you, like they're getting closer and closer to your car. And as he says that, one of them does land directly next to his car, causes it to tumble into the side of the freeway. He hits his head, and he blacks out. And as he blacks out, he has a dream of big black swirling clouds. A terrifying voice comes down from the heavens, and a giant pair of burning red eyes open up. And it says to him, care for nothing, hope for nothing. I will but look upon you, little thing, and you will be unmade. And all at once, Constantine feels like he's disappearing and dying, when all of a sudden an Ankh, a golden Ankh, appears, obviously Dr. Fate, saying, John Constantine, turn away from this doom. It is not for you. You must reach Liverpool. I will find you there. So Constantine comes to. He's like, what the hell was that all about? But he realizes he has to keep going, so he jump starts the car, wipes the blood off his head, and starts driving again. And he keeps saying, I'm not stopping for anything. And almost immediately, he comes across that same car from the beginning of the issue, the one that had the family, and he sees the dead bodies of the mother and father in the front seat. The back door was left open. The iPod that the girl was listening to was left in the back seat. And he's like, don't stop. Don't look at the parents. Don't see it's there. Don't think about what happened to the girl. She's not real. None of this is real. Don't stop for anything. And he pulls out a cigarette. He goes to light it. He hesitates for a minute. And he's like, just drive away. Just drive away. That's all you got to do. And he pictures the eyes again, saying, care for nothing, hope for nothing. And so he gets out of the car. He goes over and checks the iPod. He embraces it with a little bit of a spell because this girl had it on her, so it should be easy enough to get back to its owner. And he follows the enchanted earbuds to where they are leaning to, like a dowsing rod. And he goes through a field, and as he gets to the other side, he sees this man who's clearly psychotically not okay, dragging along a dismembered leg of the young girl. And he says, "Oh, I'm sorry. She's dead. She made me do it. Stupid, stupid." And he's having a break. And he's like, "Oh, there's nothing but pieces. There's nothing but guts. You can see if you want. I don't care. I don't hope for anything. I don't care for anything. But there's only one bullet left. What should I do?" And Constantine just makes a gun signal, aims it at his own temple, and then you hear a blam noise from off panel. So Constantine gets back in his car. He's back on the M5. He manages to get up to Liverpool, and as he's there, he's walking through the streets, and he's like, "Oh, all the roads in this town are the same as I remember," but it feels the same if it weren't for all the fear in the air. And he goes for a cigarette. He realizes he's out, and he's like, "Oh, well, I hope the alternate me smokes the same brand." So he keeps trying to shake what he's seen tonight. He's like, none of it's real. It's just an alternate Earth, and I can get out of here, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. And as he makes his way down the street, he's like, all right, this street, it's that house, the one with the white door, but like he's caught off guard because like it's exactly the same. Like all of this is supposed to be gone because in his Earth, the house burned down. It was destroyed after his dad's and his mom and dad died. So he's like, okay, all right, this is a bit much. Just shake it off. And he goes and he knocks on the door, and he's like, just knock. The other John will answer the door, and you can finally get out of this. And so he knocks, and a voice on the other side is like, "Oh, step back, show me you're unarmed." And he's like, puts up his hands, all right, everything, like, I'm in peace. And the door opens up, and he's like, what the hell is going on now? And as Constantine is let in, he sees the other Constantine is recovering on the couch from the stuff that happened last issue, but the man who let him in is his own father, who in his timeline is dead. So that obviously takes him for a shock. I really, really like this issue. Like, just as a one-shot, just as like okay, Constantine shows up, and it's like pure Constantine of like, okay, you have this person who tries to convince himself he doesn't care about anything, but his pure flaw is that he cares so deeply all the time, but it like never works out for him. I love that. It's really boiling it down. Even just the simple thing of we see one panel with the family car and it drives off, and then we come back to it later on, but you remember it because of how much he like pauses on it for a moment. It's a really good issue. I don't know if maybe it's just like it hit me at the right time or something like that, but I don't know. I really like this one. I'm going to give it an 8.5. I think this one is definitely worth checking out, even independently. You don't even know anything about the Earth 2 stuff going on. Like, all you have to accept is John was put into an alternate world he doesn't know anything about, and he wants to just get home. But, like, it won't let him. It won't let him just ignore things. So, top tier, loving it. Hope the rest of the book continues on this level caliber of good. Klarion number 2, written by Nocenti, art by Trevor McCarthy. So last issue, God, search me, I don't know. Klarion made some friends. One of them took some techno bug thing, and it made him super angry when Klarion started hitting on his girl. So this issue picks up mid-fight between them, and Klarion and Rasp are still fighting, and Klarion has no idea what's going on, and Rasp is just like, I thought we were friends, Klarion. And he's just like, bro, I just met you. Also, I just met the girl. What the hell is going on here? And he says, oh, I don't trust you, Klarion, to which Klarion says, oh, well, he's got a point. So Klarion then goes down, and Zell, the girl, is like, can't you do something? He's clearly amped up on something. It's like, yeah, it's you. He's freaked out about you. But then we see through Raph's eyes and sees that he's in the shroud, which I guess is the same as the internet. And he sees all of this information on Zell, but he has absolutely nothing on Klarion. And he's like, what? Bro, are you like not on the internet? What the hell is this? So as they're fighting, meanwhile, they're in front of this whole crowd who's like recording all of it. And he's like, oh man, this is cool, but kind of freaky. And Zell points out like, hey, we probably shouldn't be filmed doing this. We want to wrap this up now. So Klarion goes up to Rasp, and Rasp is like, seriously, dude, have you like never been on the internet ever before? How does that even work? And Clarion's like, sorry, man, got to take you down now. So he's like seemingly is about to strangle Rasp, whereas Zell chimes in saying like, don't hurt him, can't you see he's scared? And we then see that somehow, some way, he just takes him down. Like, it's done. So all of this junk starts like falling onto the crowd, and they start throwing things at the three amigos here. And Klarion wants to turn around and like fight back. He's like, how dare they attack us? And he's like, nah, screw it. They're just afraid of us. Hell, I'm afraid of us. So Klarion makes a spell to mask their escape, and then they all run off. We then cut to Piper and Noah, the two powerful mages who are in charge of the house Klarion's staying at, and they're just like, oh, Klarion seems awfully strong, but how will we take advantage of that? Anyway, we can't have this crowd knowing about magic, so we'll cast a memory spell, but it's not going to be very specific. And we see one guy just being like, I was so angry before, but I don't know why. Also, why am I standing here? Also, who am I? Where's my dog? So they're like, oops, oh well, whatever. So Piper makes the point of saying, well, we're going to have to give them the talk. So we then see the rest of the group get back home, and Piper basically says, like, all right, look, I need you and Rasp to get along. Like, whatever's going on between you two, I need you to shake on it and make it cool. And so they shake, they get all buddy-buddy, just be like, hey, man, we almost killed each other. It's just like, yeah, totally. You want to do it again? And he's like, totally, but later. So Piper leads the room to make a healing thing for Noah, because he's still got whatever bugs inside of him. And he's like, yeah, but seriously, why did you look like half metal? What's going on? And Rasp was like, I don't know. I ate this thing from the metal club. It was supposed to make me more powerful. And it's like, well, it seems like it worked, but what did it do? And he's like, I was able to see all this information. Like, I was connected to the internet. Like, I was able to see everything about you, Zell. And Zell's like, you saw my internet history. That's not me. Also, don't judge me on that. So Rasp was just like, oh, but like, you get to be ahead of the tech curve. That was incredible. It's all I wanted, but I was so blinded by the data, I couldn't move past it. So then we go later, and for some reason Zell's hair is like the size of freaking Mount Rushmore, but regardless, Piper basically says, hey, look, I need you guys to pay attention here. Klarion, you got crazy strong magic, but with great power comes great responsibility. I'm not kidding you, they say that line. Zell, meanwhile, we know that you have magic in you, but you're refusing to tap into it. And she's like, nah, I just literally don't feel it in me yet. I can't feel it. I don't know what's going on. So they walk down the halls, and Zell and Klarion are just like cracking jokes at each other behind Piper's back. And Piper's like, seriously, shut up. Pay attention. I need you guys to focus here. All right? Something's coming with us. We don't know what, but we got to be ready for anything. Klarion, did you try to even hide your magic when you fought Rasp? And he's like, no. And it's like, did you worry if other people were going to get hurt by it? And he's like, no. He's like, start worrying about that. And Zell, show him the ropes. Make sure that Klarion's strong. And he's like, what? What ropes? So then we go to Noah, who's cracking up a spell in the kitchen, like literally cooking a spell. And he gets a hairball, which he calls a bezoar, from Tickle, the cat. And all of a sudden it sprouts into this giant multi-eyed eldritch abomination. And Noah's like, well, that might have been a bit much. And Piper's like, Jesus Christ, that was from his cat? This isn't good. So then we cut over to the Metropolitan Club, the metal people, and we meet up with Necrot and Cole. Cole is the leader, Coal, and Necrot is, I guess, a robot that he made to just be his companion that like needles him a little bit. And they keep saying like, oh, we made these little spider bots. They're self-replicating. They're self-modifying. They can do whatever we need. We put one into Rasp in order to make him our eyes and ears inside of the Witches Club thing. And he will be our perfect little toy. And Necrot's just like, oh, but what if the spiders become self-aware and they turn against us? I'm afraid of AI. And just like, shut up, Necrot, you're stupid and dumb and whatnot. But yeah, he basically just says, yeah, the spiders are going to let us do what we need to do. They can change DNA. They can do anything we want. And he then will change the world with them. And basically Cole's whole thing is he wants money. He straight up says that, and somehow the witches things is going to help him. And then all of a sudden he says, I feel in pain. There are splinters in my heart. To which Necrot says, I thought the implant got that under control. And he's like, oh, it doesn't matter. I will soon have a heart of iron. So we see, good Lord, we see Zell and Klarion literally learning the ropes. They are on a bunch of ropes training their body strength because Zell says that's important. You have to have a sturdy body before you can learn magic properly. And they look around the place and they're just like, oh man, this place is so creepy. It's got all this weird stuff all around that Noah uses in his spells. And Clarion's like, why don't we just bail out of this place and we go start our own spell shop? Like, why do we got to wait for them to say we're ready? And so I was like, because we're just a couple of high school dropouts studying necromancy, and it's just like, no law against that. Meanwhile, we cut to Rasp every once in a while looking through like a peephole and is like jealous of them, kind of flirting a little bit, but they're just like doing the rope thing. Klarion points out Tickle the cat, who, again, is dead and in a jar, theoretically. But then Zell looks and just like, are you sure Tickle's dead? And then Tickle's eyes open up, and Zell starts to fall down. She loses her grip on the rope. Klarion uses her magic to capture Zell. Rasp is looking on like, I'm in here sick as a dog. I'm coughing up blood and apparently little spider robots, and they're out there making out and dancing with each other. And then he realizes, oh, wait, I literally just spit out a spider robot. And the spider robot responds with a, hey, you look like you could use a friend. Oh, will you be my best buddy? And he's just like, yeah, of course I will. And then we have the final panels of Klarion and Zell, who literally just start making out. Like, they start kissing, and something in Zell's hair manages to start wrapping around Clarion's throat, and he's like, oh, her hairs around my neck is getting tight. Oh no. All right. Look, I'll admit this issue is much better than the first issue. It at least like narrowed down the pool a little bit and like kept it very, very, very tight in terms of what the hell is going on. So I'll give it props on that. That being said, I don't understand a goddamn thing about what's happening here. It is always one of those problems. Like, I don't even know how to describe it, because whenever I'm reading a book, like digitally, I'm reading it on the DC Universe Infinite app, I don't have any problem remembering what happened last issue. Like, Batman, Batgirl, Superman, any of those books, even the smaller tier titles like Justice League 3000 or something, I can always remember what happened last issue, even without actually going into it and looking at it. But for some reason, with Ann Nocenti's books, Klarion, Catwoman, anything else she's touched, I always have such a problem remembering what happened last time. And I think it's because these things don't feel like they have any plan to them. They just feel like, and then this happens. And then we just move on. Like that whole thing of like, and then Klarion and Rasp are fighting and he turns into this whole techno demon. And then we're just gonna kind of be done with that and we're gonna move on. It's like, was that not building to something? I don't understand. The same thing with the hair wrapping around his neck. I guarantee you, I absolutely promise you, at the beginning of the next issue, she's just going to be like, oops, sorry, my hair does that sometimes. And then we're just going to move on. Like, it's so frustrating. So yeah, I don't know what I'm really saying about all that, beyond the fact of like, I don't enjoy this book. This issue may be better than the last one, but like, I'm so unengaged. I so just do not care about what's going on. So I think I'm going to say that this one is a 5. I don't know what I gave the last one. That might be harsher than the last one even, but like it's a 5. I just can't be bothered to care one way or the other about it. Here's to 4 more issues. Batman Eternal number 32, written by Snyder, Tynion, Fawkes, Higgins, and Seeley, art by Jason Fabok. So, this issue opens up with Hush facing down Spoiler in an alley, and he's like, I should have just taken care of you a few weeks ago. I should have, like, shot you in front of your dad. Like, whatever, this is done now. And then Stephanie pulls out a thing of mace, shoots Hush in the face, and then goes to punch him. It's just like, you have no idea, and just punches him. And she immediately is like, oh god, my hand hurts. Why? Oh, no one ever says punching hurts this bad. So then he slaps her with the back of a pistol and is like, all right, well, that was an inconvenience, but I'm still going to shoot you. And then that's when Batman comes in and he's like, nope, you're not doing any of that. So Batman starts attacking Hush. And Hush calls him out. He's like, seriously, bro, you used to at least have standards with your helpers, but like, this girl doesn't know anything. What are you doing, man? So Hush is firing at Batman. Batman's coming in, punching him. Stephanie manages to hop onto her motorbike, and in the middle of the fight, she just rams into Hush, takes him down, and as Batman and her are standing off to the side, Hush is like, all right, well, I'm not gonna just leave without a calling card here. And so he throws a live grenade over at the pair of them. Batman pushes Steph down, manages to block her from the blast, but when he gets up, he's like, all right, so what did you say your name was? And then she's just gone. And he's like, all right, well, I don't like it when it's done to me. So then we cut to the ruins of Arkham Asylum, where Batwing is still practically dead in all of the debris and rubble, and there's an explosion up top, and he's like, oh god, no, not again. And we see that it is Batman descending down. He's like, hey, you're okay, we're gonna get you home. So then we get a nice little wrap up to a few things. We see the Batwing. Batman has Alfred, brings him back home. Alfred's reuniting with his daughter, and they have a nice little hug. We then go to Jason Bard, who is climbing up the steps to the roof of the GCPD, and he meets Hush up there, and Hush is like, how's your leg feel? Because he's limping like crazy. And he's like, it's not good. And also, there's no elevator to the roof, so please don't make me do that again. And he's like, no, stop your whining. And so Hush hands over a bunch of papers and says, I need you to secure these people in town. Or not these people, those locations, get people on each of these. And he's like, what are they? And he looks at it and he's like, oh my god. And Hush is like, by the way, we're going to go out wide. Like, you're going to share this news. So we go back to the cave, and Julia's talking with Bruce, and it's just like, well, I put Alfred down to sleep. Like, it's whatever. The Batwing suit, do we know what's wrong with it? And it's just like, nah, it's just got a bunch of errors. We just got to fix that up. But Batwing's off. He hasn't checked in with his dad in weeks. He's doing a break. We all need a break. And she's like, yeah, you do too, man. You haven't been in the cave for weeks. And he's like, oh, it's all right. I've got tons of mini little caches of equipment and stuff I can use hidden around the city. I just use that stuff. It doesn't mean I wasn't taking care of myself. And she looks at like the bat suit, which is riddled with bullet holes, and just like, yeah, clearly. So at that point, Bruce is freaking out about something. He all of a sudden gets real quiet. And he's like, did you enter this database, the McGregor database? And she's like, no, I have no idea what that even is. And he's like, okay, that's a problem. So then we cut over to the apartment of Vicky Vale, where Jason Bard has shown up, and he's got all these papers from Hush, and he's like, hey, Vicky, I know, it's been a while. My leg's all messed up. Feel bad for me. By the way, I got these papers. You're going to want to publish this. And we cut back over to Bruce, who's like, the McGregor database is those caches I was talking about. It's a listing of all of them. It is their locations, and it is only a local database accessible from in the Batcave. And the last time it was brought up was the night that Hush broke in. So she's just like, okay, so Hush knows where all of your caches with all of your pretty little toys are. And he's like, yeah, but like, it doesn't matter. All of the sites have DNA locks. The only people who are able to access them are me and Alfred. Oh my god, he got Alfred's DNA. We're all screwed. So then we cut over to one of the caches, and Hush is using a little syringe and a fake fingerprint, and he manages to trick the system into thinking it's Alfred, and it opens up, and he steps inside, and inside is just tons of stuff, explosives, just huge amounts of things. And we cut over to the Vicky Vale side of things, and Jason is explaining, yeah, there are these little weapons bunkers all around Gotham City. Wayne Enterprises knows about them and built them. Like, Bruce Wayne is totally, like, making armories for him in the middle. Can you imagine how bad it would be if this got out into the hands of normal people, and he's just letting it happen while the city's falling apart? Bruce Wayne's an asshole. So we then cut over to, and Bruce hops in the Batwing. He's about to fly off. But we cut over to somewhere in the city. The military cops or whatever are declaring martial law and saying curfew, everybody get inside. And as they drive by a phone booth, all of a sudden it explodes. It takes out this police convoy with it. People start screaming. They're saying, help me, oh god, medics, we need medics over here. And as we zoom into the rubble of this explosion, we see an auspiciously placed batarang. Oh god, it's all Batman's fault. So, yeah, no, it's a short issue, but the art by Jason Fabok really, really works. And then also just like the realization from Bruce. Like, I thought for sure this was going to be one of those, like, okay, we're wrapping up this section's stuff, because we open up with the idea of like, all right, Stephanie is more in Bruce's view, because obviously if Hush is targeting her, that's an important thing. We have Batwing getting out of the rubble. We have Alfred coming home. It just felt like a natural conclusion to a lot of stuff. But then you throw on this big thing of, and here's Hush's like actual plan, like here's the thing that he's doing. And he did say that it was in response to the fact that that building they were targeting like 5 issues ago didn't actually end up going down. So it's not his initial plan, but he's adapting pretty well here. I think this is a solid little turning point of the story. And I know I already said it, but goddamn, Jason Fabok's art, top tier, love it. I cannot speak highly enough of that. So, yeah, I'm going to say this is a... I kind of want to say 8. It's somewhere between a 7.5 and an 8, but I'm going to give it the 8. I think that it is a super refreshing issue. I really did enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to seeing if we can keep this sort of energy up. I think Jason Fabok's still on the next issue as well, so hooray for me. Future's End number 28, written by Azzarello, Lemire, Jurgens, and Giffen, art by Andy MacDonald. So this issue picks up on Cadmus Island, where Lois Lane descends from the heavens with a parachute and lands on the beach, and she is so grateful that there was actually an island here. She's just grabbing the sand like, oh, thank God, oh, Jesus. But as she looks up, she sees a giant OMAC standing over her saying, you're not supposed to be here, you're gonna come with me. And she's like, whoa, hey, I'm a journalist, I'm happy to go with you wherever, like, it's just, you don't need to take me, or like, apprehend me or whatever, like, I'm willing to walk with you. And OMAC's just like, I'm still gonna take you, that's part of my programming. And then Lois picks up a taser and like zaps OMAC. Of course it does nothing to him, and he's like, alright, well now you're a threat, so I'm gonna beat you. And she's like, alright, screw this, and she runs off into the jungle. And she recognizes OMAC from the vision she had from touching some of like the relics that Green Arrow sent her. But as she comes out the other side of the jungle, she gets to the Cadmus like courtyard, and she sees the Cadmus symbol, and she's like, what? The pharmaceutical company? What the heck is going on here? But there's a bunch more OMACs and obviously supers flying around, so she runs back into the jungle again, trying to make sense of it, and she ends up tripping over something. And as she looks at what she tripped, it is Earth 2's Red Tornado, which has been essentially dismantled at this point. It's just a torso and a head, saying, please help me. But for anyone not in the know, Red 2's Earth Tornado is Lois Lane of that Earth. So she recognizes herself and is just like, I'm sorry, what? We then go to Vegas, where King Faraday is talking to Sergeant Rock. And basically, they're just like catching up and like trying to figure out what King Faraday's doing here. So Faraday says like, hey, yeah, Brother Eye, it sounds like it's a satellite. It did all this stuff. My island was compromised. It's a whole big thing. And now I'm putting this operation on hold. And Sergeant Rock's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Maybe I didn't understand you properly here, but like, what are you actually doing here? Like, you need to admit to me what's going on. And they basically trade back and forth a few times, where the gist of it is King Faraday, during the war, they saw all the stuff that went on with like Apocalypse and all that stuff, and Faraday didn't like the fact that superheroes could turn on them easily. It's the Amanda Waller thing. And so he's like, yeah, the villains outnumber the heroes like 10-1. We need something that's going to be able to put down heroes and villains, so therefore I've made the cure, quote unquote, for it. But like, he straight up says, I'm coming up with a neutralizing agent. And Sergeant Rock tells him, like, I think that's the first time you've ever said it wasn't a cure. And he's like, well, in my head, I still say it is. Like, I think that it's a sickness. So then Sergeant Rock calls him out, like, okay, but then why did you make 50 Sue? Like, that's the part that doesn't make any sense here. And he says, we needed to be able to create one in order to figure out how to destroy it. Like, we needed to build it up so that we could bring it back down. And as he's saying this, 50 Sue comes in, tears streaming down her face, and she's like, Deathstroke abandoned me? He's working with Brother Eye, and I want to put him down. Batman does not abandon the Robins, neither will Deathstroke to 50 Sue. I'm gonna need a team. And immediately King Faraday's like, I'm sorry, can we back up a little bit? You said Deathstroke is working with Brother Eye now? And she's like, yes, of course, keep up. So at that point, Sergeant Rock chimes in just like, I'm sorry, this is her, yes? And he's just like, yeah, hi, 50 Sue, glad to meet you. Anyway, need a team. And she just lists off, like, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the island, we're going to take out Brother Eye, we're going to take control, and then we're going to skin Deathstroke alive, you know, just for fun. And immediately Faraday's like, why don't you just make him disappear? Oh, right, where's the fun in that? Sorry I asked. So at that point, Voodoo comes in saying how the OMAC that they have on their team is an absolute creep and is like trying to follow the teammates into the bathrooms. And immediately 52 perks up and just like, did you say a team? You have a team? And also an OMAC who needs killing? I'm in. Cool, you're in my team now. Let's go take care of this. So she walks out and is ready to go kill that OMAC. And Voodoo's like, I'm sorry, what just happened here? So then we go over to New York City where Terry and Bruce are fighting in Tim Drake's apartment, and then a bomb just went off from Plastique. And Plastique's like, hey, did I kill you? Are you dead? And Terry pops out just being like, I thought I told you to wait inside. She's like, I figured you could use help. And he's like, all right, well, for now, run. And that's where Batman tackles Terry out the window and says, like, I'm going to shatter your vertebra when we hit the ground. And Terry, God, so many Batmans, just circles around and uses a jetpack in order to escape, like from his feet. I don't know what you call it, rocket boots. Bruce uses a grappling hook to grab hold of him. And as Terry's trying to fly away, he talks to Alfred, just being like, you know, I thought it was the war that made him so high-strung, but clearly he was just always this way. And so Terry manages to maneuver the ropes in order to fling Batman into a nearby window, severing the cable. And so as Plastique is running, Terry comes by, scoops her up, and then he's like, all right, thank you for the assist. So we then meet up with Ronnie, who's saying goodbye to some friends after some football practice, and waiting on his doorstep, I don't know what you call it, his stoop, is Tim Drake. And he's like, hey, my name's Cal. Have you seen Madison? And he's like, nah, not in a few days. Why? I mean, if she doesn't want to talk to you, I don't really want to get on her. And he's like, no, nothing like that. Like, she's gone missing. I don't know any of her friends, but I know that she hung out with you, and I'm just worried because she's not the type to disappear like that. And he's like, no, I mean, I haven't talked to her, but one of her other friends would be Jason Rush. He should be down to Columbia. He just lost his research job, but he should still be down there. And he's like, awesome, cool, bye. So he starts off, and then Ronnie's like, whoa, hold up. If she needs help, I'm in too. Then we go to Jason, who is at the apartment of Dr. Yamazaki, and is like, hey, I wanted to talk to you about getting my job back. And he's knocking on the door, and he hears little muffled voices inside, like screams for help. And he's like, I'm coming, doctor. And he kicks down the door. But then on the TV is just a video of a building burning down in Tokyo. And it's like, oh, no one knows where the Justice League is, and this building being taken down, there are hundreds inside, and they're all going to die. These people around me say that my families are inside, they're friends and family, but like firefighters cannot get inside. And then all of a sudden the building explodes, and you hear screams from the TV, and then it loops over again. And Jason puts together like, oh, this is how his wife died. He's just been sitting here watching it on repeat in a dark room. Oh, God, can you imagine what this has done to him? And then he turns around and he looks at a murder board on the back wall with all the Justice League members with their faces crossed out. And immediately Jason's like, oh, he's lost it, which means he's literally capable of doing anything right now. So we go to his lab where Madison Payne was kidnapped, and she's like, hey, untie me, I'm going to make you regret this. And he's like, yeah, look, you have nothing... Don't worry about it. You're only making this worse. You've nothing really to fear here. I'm confident in my own technology. And she's like, what are you planning to do? And he's like, I need a human test subject for my teleportation. I don't want to go through the hoopla of trying to get actual permission. And if anyone should be punished, it's you, the daughter of the war criminal who may or may not have cost my wife her life. And she's like, but I didn't do anything wrong. I dislike my dad just as much as anyone else. And it's like, well, tough. He deserves to pay just as much as I did. And this is for the war. And she's like, the war's been over for years, man. You got to get over that. And he's like, dong, the war is just starting. This is the war against those who are hidden among us, blocking progress. And your father was one of them. So at that point, she says, he says she needs to be in the machine for a little bit in order for it to read her, in order to up the chances of success. But then it's fly or die time. That's the issue. I think it's good. I think my biggest problem is that there's like 6 or 7 pages devoted to the Faraday, Sergeant Rock, 50 Sue story thing going on. And that is far and away the least interesting part to me right now. I think that it is something that they're hiding it in so much mystery, and even if this issue went into depth explaining a little bit more, I still feel like I don't know. I'm waiting for a shoe to drop, but like we're already more than halfway through the series, you know? Like it's at a certain point, I'm just like, okay, fine. Like this is just a plot that's happening and I'm never going to connect with it. And I want to be able to connect with it. I'm not saying that I'm actively rejecting it, but it's not something that I feel like they are giving me enough to work with here. So yeah, it's a fine issue. I think overall it's still going to come down to like, I'm going to say like a 6.5. I don't think any of the storylines in this really grabbed me enough that I would be comfortable giving it a 7. Nothing is bad, but nothing is like good either. So yeah, 6.5. Earth 2 World's End number 6, written by Bennett, Johnson, and Wilson, art by the entire crew of DC. So, last issue we had Dr. Fate fighting against one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and it was famine, and he put some sort of spell, and it seemed like everything was done. And this issue opens up with him asserting, "There, it is done. I have defeated her." And she's like, oh, she was still just like a normal alien thing, whatever. It's totally easy to defeat. And Hawkgirl and Flash are like, all right, cool. That's impressive. You're doing good, Dr. Fate. But then all of a sudden Flash collapses, and we see that he is very quickly deteriorating. He's like slimming down, whatnot. And Fate looks at his own hand, which is also like disapparating as Hawkgirl collapses. And he's like, all right, well, clearly there was more to that than meets the eye. Turns out Jimmy Olsen is doing something over there, and I need to go protect him. So Fate away! And he just flies off, and Hawkgirl and Flash are like, what the? Help, please? So we then go down to deep below Atlantis, where Aquawoman is essentially talking to the old gods of Atlantis, saying, hey, I'll give you whatever you want, blood sacrifice, my people, whatever, but you need to save Atlantis. And the eyes on this giant door wake up, and it speaks in this old speech, like, and Aquawoman's like, I accept, sounds good. Go on, gods, do your thing. So we then cut over to the fire pits under Geneva, where we ran in last issue to a Superman down there, and Red Tornado's like, oh my god. But this issue, very quickly, she comes across saying, wait a minute, hold on, it's a clone. It's a clone. It looks exactly like him, and I'm freaking out still, but it's a clone. And Superman and Valzad and Batman are like, in order to make this clone, they must have needed a lot of DNA. And so there's a fair chance that Superman might actually still be here. And Batman opens up a door, and they go down the stereotypical hall of test tubes that are full of Superman clones, just over and over again. So we then cut over to Helena, who's being tortured by Desaad, and he's like, I'm going to break you soon. And she's like, no, you aren't. And spits in his face. And he's like, yeah, I will. As she looks down this hall of like dismembered corpses, and she's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm in trouble here. So we then cut over to Green Lantern, who is ferrying Solomon Grundy across China. And he's like, oh god, I hate this much green around me, it's gonna make me sick. Look, what are we even doing? Your avatar, who said that there are other avatars, didn't even give you like a location. What are we even supposed to do here? And Alan's like, I got a feeling. I have a vibe, and it's telling me to go in this direction. And so they do, and they end up at the old chateau that used to belong to his ex-lover, Sam. And immediately Alan's like, what the hell is going on here? Why would it take me here? So Grundy realizes the mood is different. He's like, what's up? What's going on? He's like, don't worry about it. Everything's fine. And Alan makes his way into the building. We then cut to the Chicago stronghold, where Barbara and Dick Grayson have built up a little bit of a group, and Barbara is deputizing people, saying, oh yeah, I'm Lieutenant Barbara Grayson with the Chicago PD, and you all who are causing problems here by stealing rations from Mother, you're under arrest. And they're just like, lady, this is lawlessness. Like, you don't have any authority here. Like, we're not going to stop just because of you. And immediately she's like, oh yeah, well, come and get him. And Dick Grayson's just like, hey, you maybe don't bait them like that. You know, we do have a son nearby. Like, we got to think about him. And the bad guy's just like, yeah, think about your kid. You know, it's a big thing like that. And then this big dude shows up behind the threatening guy, punches him in the face and says, "Nuff talking." And when Barbara asks who this guy is, we see that he is Ted Grant, and he's up to join the crew to keep the peace. So everyone loves Ted Grant. We then go to the World Army, which is trying to set up Big Barda, Mr. Miracle, Mr. Terrifics, Terry Sloan, and Fury to go attack Apocalypse. They're like, we'll be ready in 24 hours. And then all of a sudden, the famine thing that was affecting Flash and Hawkgirl is also affecting everyone else there. And Barda's like, we're out of time. We got to go now. We got to attack. And he's just like, all right, Commander Khan's like, Jimmy Olsen, need you to activate the defenses. Meanwhile, Jimmy Olsen's in like a weird seizure coma because of the mother box doing its thing. So they're ready to get up. They're trying to fly out. We see that there is this strange figure dressed in like blue flame that's flying towards them. We don't know who it is. But Fury grabs hold of as many people as she can, just like, all right, time to go. And Mr. Miracle activates his mother box and says, all right, let's go. We go to war. And the mother box disappears from his hand. It's unclear whether or not he teleported, but it disappears from his hand, reappears in Jimmy Olsen's hands. He's then like, oh, you belong to Mr. Miracle? And then he collapses down to the ground. That's when Dr. Fate shows up and he's like, hey, Jimmy, this is going to hurt. So then we go back to the cloning facility. And Balzar's like, yeah, look, everyone left for some reason. We don't know why. It's completely empty in here. Red Tornado's laying the other Superman down to rest. And he's like, she basically comes to the same conclusion of like, look, if they are able to make these many clones, there's a chance he might still be down here alive. We need to go check him out. And Batman's like, no, we came here for Helena, and she is definitely still alive, though not much longer if we keep dicking around. So he turns to Power Girl and is just like, who you going with? Maybe alive Superman or a definitely alive Helena? And she's like, Helena, of course. It's not even a question. And Lois is like, seriously? Not even a question? Like, not? And she's like, look, I'm sorry, but like, I went through a lot of stuff on Earth Zero with Helena. I gotta be there for her, you know? And we then see them walking down the tube of clones. One of the clones busts out and starts attacking Batman. And they manage to pull him off. But then Batman just opens up the Miraclo thing that he's got, and he starts chugging it down and just like, okay, hold on. You got a bit much in your system there, buddy. You shouldn't be taking that much. And Thomas just pulls out a piece of kryptonite and holds it to Val-Zod, just being like, don't test me, man. I am on the edge, and I need to be able to get to Helena. At which point, Power Girl comes up, seemingly snaps his wrist, and is just like, don't you ever do that to Val again. And he's like, fine, whatever. So she gets, he tosses her over into the side, just being like, look, if you want to sit here and play pretend and do whatever and not go and find Helena, that's on you guys. I don't need you. I'm Batman. I can do whatever. And he pulls out more Miraclo. And Balzada's like, if you keep taking that, you are going to be too drug-addled to even realize what's going on. I'm doing this for your own benefit. And he heat visions away the Miraclo, which Thomas does not take well. But our final little thing here is back at the Chateau of Sam. Alan's looking around. He finds a little note on top of a jewelry box that has, of course, the engagement ring and stuff. And he says Sam left it for him. It's signed for Alan. And it says, Alan, if you'll forgive me, I'd like to be more than just the angel on your shoulder. I'd like to be your husband. And Alan picks up the ring and kisses and is like, oh, Sam. And then this figure appears from behind him, a windy figure that says, oh, yeah, that was my name. I was Sam. But no longer. I'm now the Avatar of the White, which, of course, represents wind and such. So Sam's the Avatar of the White. Sure. Why not? It's fine. It's a perfectly okay issue. I don't know. There's not much to it, honestly, if I'm getting down into the weeds of it. Like, in the fire pit plot, they discover there are Superman clones, and therefore it's this, like, little bit of a struggle of Superman or Helena, but, like, it doesn't feel like that much of a struggle. They didn't really sell, like, even Power Girl's just like, no, it's not, like, we're going for Helena. Like, that's absolutely the answer here. The famine thing is confusing me a bit. I'm sure we'll get more explanation as it goes on, but the fact that, like, it didn't affect them in the fire pits, but it did affect them on Themyscira. Something's weird about that. I'm curious how it's all linked together, but yeah, Mr. Miracle and Co. are going to Apocalypse to bring the fight to them. We got a whole thing going on there. I'm interested. I'm intrigued. It's not like it's not doing good things, but it's definitely a very slow-paced book. It is taking its time to get where it's going. So overall, this one is probably going to be a 6.5. 7 doesn't feel right. I'm going to go with a 6.5. So we'll check in next week. And that's it. That is all the comics that came out from DC Comics this November 12th, 2014. And next week, oh boy, next week, we have a humdinger of an episode. We have 16 comics coming out. And you'd think, oh, that's a lot, because I'm not going to try to mince words with you here. It is a lot. But also, coming out next week is a next Multiversity issue. This is Multiversity Pax Americana. For those of you who don't know, that is set on Earth 4 and is the Watchmen universe. But not the Watchmen universe, the Charlton universe. But it would totally be the Watchmen universe. It just... Grant Morrison had a little bit of tact there. He was like, well, I don't want that to be what it is, so... That's my Scottish accent. I hope that is absolutely as offensive as it should be. Anyway, let's talk about the rest of the comics coming out. So, next week, in no particular order, I already said we have Multiversity, but we also have Batman and Robin, Batwoman, Harley Quinn, Red Hood and the Outlaws, Batman/Superman, Supergirl, Superman/Wonder Woman, Green Lantern New Guardians, Justice League, Wonder Woman, Teen Titans, Trinity of Sin, and then our 3 weeklies, Batman Eternal, World's End, and Future's End. So, like I said, packed week. Expect that one to run a little bit longer than usual, and I will try. I will do my very gosh darn goodness to not put that off until the last possible second, so that way we don't have to have yet another intro of me saying, my life is so hard because I talk about comics, and there's just not enough time to talk about comics. So, with all that out of the way, let me go ahead and just do the wrap-up stuff on the show. If you have any comments that you would like to share with any of the comics I talked about this week, last week, any week at all, go ahead and hit us up in the comments down below the YouTube video or on any one of our social media platforms. We have a Discord, we have a subreddit, we have a Patreon. Boy, look at us. We're really just branching out with the things that have existed for over a decade now. I think everything's existed over a decade out of that list. Maybe not Patreon. I can't remember when Patreon was made. I'm sure it's been around. Anyway, all of that is going on. Be sure to check it out. And if you liked this episode, please give it a thumbs up, a couple of stars, smiley face. What other reactions are there? Heart it, like it, buy it, use it, break it, fix it, trash it, melt it, quick upgrade it. All right, so I am entirely done. I have work in exactly 15 minutes, so I'm going to sign off, start editing this episode, and get it out to you, the public. I hope you enjoy. But until next time, always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.